You know, in a strange sort of way, um, whatever I did on video yesterday, discussing SAD, etc., which is, again, a yearly thing, you know, like I said, my wife accused me of having these same cycles even in Phoenix where I really didn't even notice, but and there are times when she would accuse me of being depressed when I didn't feel like I was. That I think is just natural for me. I think it's worse here. I think it's worse anywhere where there are real seasons, etc. But I also lapse into my autumnal glory. I wallow in my autumnness, like any dragon should. But someone, you know, mentioned things about depression and depths, etc., and it kind of got me to thinking that maybe the only reason I was able to speak is that I'm kind of coming out of it, not permanently. I mean that I've been in a depth, a trough in whatever cycles I'm in, where I had to hide from everything, and now I'm doing a few things, facing things, not fully upset with myself about it, but doing more than I have been for the past few months at least. Not coming up with positive results, of course, because I'm doomed. But today I made one of those kind of steps by taking a quick break and running out for a walk. And I ran across some mushrooms. There's a lot of mushrooms here and they're interesting. And it brought a memory back that I wanted to share because usually when I reference the kinds of things that maybe I miss the most, I'm usually so emotional about the situation that it's hard to really grasp. But this is one where maybe it wasn't quite the same pain. And it's not in vagaries. You know, I can point to it and say, this is what it is. And this is just an endemic representation of something that was endemic, that's endemic throughout my life, but also in our relationship. I tapped the mushroom, but eventually the thought came to my, and by that I don't mean that I had sex with it. I tapped it just to feel how hard it was, because I'm always curious what the texture of them is. They vary so much, and this was a relatively hard one. Sometimes they're kind of squishy, and they all look like they should be, but they're not. It reminded me of a game we used to play, I guess. I don't know. Just sort of a playful interaction that was always there, which was look at the X. And it started, I think, with mushrooms. I think she told me at one point, oh, look at the mushroom. And so I did the kind of silly thing that I do now and then, and just kind of stared at it, and stared, and stared, and stared, until she said, you can stop looking at the mushroom. Like, more and more intently looking at the mushroom each time. Well, that just sparked off this entire, I mean, I don't know how many years we've been doing this. It started in Eugene, so, you know, we're talking 2017 at the earliest, probably, you know, whatever. But for a few years, where anytime one of us said, look at the X, the other had to stare at it. And I mean, it just sort of developed this way from this one incident. until the first person said, you can stop looking at the X. And it had to be phrased in that particular way. I mean, if you said, look, mushroom, it wouldn't matter, right? It had to be, look at X. And stop, you can stop looking at X or just stop looking at X. But of course, and this is all part of this kind of amuse and annoy pattern that runs throughout my life. And that's kind of what I wanted to touch on here, was that pattern with one specific thing. Because I think most of my interaction and enjoyment and everything in life is all fitting that pattern. Trying to amuse and annoy people consistently, whatever it is. And it may be annoy some people and amuse others, or it may be amuse and annoy the same person if that's the only person I've got around. And actually, I think somehow or another, whatever that pattern is, my first wife eventually got sick of it and just, really kind of lashed out at me about it when it's just really a part of me. I can understand getting sick of it, but it used to amuse and annoy her at the same time in about equal measures, maybe a little bit more towards the amusement, which is where it should be. And I'm used to that kind of interaction being directed at me as well. I usually I've trained people, with, hey, here's my humor, without expressing it that way or anything, just constantly it's happening here and there. And, people kind of reflect one another, and I don't know, it happens in this way. And it's no great intellectual thing usually, although sometimes it is. There's plays on words and all kind of shit like that involved in it. And when I say wordplay, it's of that nature, okay? Underlying it is the amuse and annoy directive. And once, the annoyance factor of I am staring at this thing that you told me to look at started to wear off, well, then came a further level of the game, because I am a cruel person. So I would be like, look at the tree, and then I'd walk away from her and leave her standing there. And I'd come back in like 5 minutes or something. But I was always like, I'm always curious how long you'll stay. and didn't really, but I'm unwilling to just abandon you because, you know what? Chicken butt, that's another one. But, that's from my childhood, but just became one of the things, one of us says that. The other one, right. I think that kind of shit is more common, but it kind of plays into the same thing. But in a way, the sign that however much I want to torture, however bad I want to make it, I just can't quite do the intense proof of both of our stubbornness and willingness to annoy the shit out of the other with these games. I know that if I was left looking in the same way, I would not leave. Like, I would just stand there. And I don't know, at some point or another you would give up, but I guess, or die, I don't know. But yeah, knowing that stubbornness in me and knowing that anyone that I could kind of deal with would have that same kind of trait, meant, nah, I can't do this, I can't push this that far, And when I was younger, I think I would. I think I did a few times. Going way back with my first girlfriend, I can remember some cases. I remember she had a loaded shotgun pointed at me at one point, based on one of these things. So it could have gone very badly. I wouldn't go to my birthday party because I had some kind of argument. But it was supposed to be a surprise party, but I knew about it, and I was just trying to frustrate the shit out of her. I was a worse person back then. I was also more willing to play with violence of various kinds. But yeah, I mean, this was sort of a snapshot thing because, again, I don't usually point to something concrete enough and show it. And I mean, I don't know if it's that amusing or interesting or anything. You know, it's describing it isn't, I think. Talking about these kinds of things. But it's all I can do. And I feel like this is a bit of insight that is of value, but maybe not to anyone who's not going to experience it directly. I have no idea. No idea. Yeah. I mean, you know, calling a side actor from Blackadder Mr. Bean all the time was another one. I don't remember, you know, I don't remember the guy's name. But, you know, trying to make these deliberate confusions and then just solidifying them. And then from there, any show, he presented history and archaeology shows and stuff like that. Any show's presenter became Mr. Bean, even if they were female. You know, I mean, just this sort of weird kind of misappropriation of pieces of information that are kind of connected, right? I don't know. Because maybe, you know, at some point or another, somebody in my life, and it wasn't her, said something like, "Oh, that's Mr. Bean," you know, to the star of Blackadder, and I just, you know, and it's not something I watched much, but just like that connection. Maybe it just happened in my head. I don't know. Maybe I dreamed it. It's so hard to tell, you know. My own reality is made up of these weird connections and patterns and such not. Anyway, I thought I'd share, and also that, like, the funniest thing is, you know, people are telling me, "Oh, you know, you sound so happy when I'm playing certain games or something," and I know that I'm fucking miserable underneath. I know that I'm hiding from everything in life, and in a sense, the fact that I'm showing pain, that I'm showing the emotions, means that I'm further along in a better place than when I seem to be enjoying myself. Enjoying myself means that I've drowned myself away from the feelings that I must have and must incorporate fully. There's two things that cannot happen. Let me think what they are. One is I can't forget, and two is there's always pain in remembering, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. But the funny thing is, these kind of play, these kind of patterns, this was probably the way in which we were kind of closest, the way we expressed affection, existence, whatever, towards each other, more than anything else. And somehow, at least for me, in all my relationships, that's been enough. The only times when I feel like everything is completely broken, and I never did with her, is where whoever I'm mated with is finding me annoying, finds me, not amusing anymore, just annoying, not, and that's the point at which it's like we're no longer in the same world. Um, that play is gone. And I wonder what that play is. Like, part of me says, I didn't have, like, I don't know, the kind of normal childhood that kids my age had. But I also didn't have anything as completely isolated as my wife had. Um, I think most normal kids at an earlier age had like friends that they went and played with and whatnot. But I was really isolated until, I don't know, maybe first, second grade, somewhere in that range, where I had kids in my neighborhood. But it always felt like things were a little weird with most of them anyway. But I was at least living in an area where there were other kids. And then that was only for a few years. And then after that, I was completely isolated again for several years. So it's almost as if large portions of my childhood and socialization were just missing. Now, with my wife, she wasn't allowed out of the house. She wasn't allowed to go play with the other kids in her neighborhood or anything like that, which put her in maybe an even more severe sense of that. But yeah, I mean, but on the other hand, I can remember this kind of humor being there at that age, and it amusing some, annoying some. It was always a balance between the two. Some were just so annoyed that they saw me as just as horrible a person to be around as some adults will or have. Many just don't get what the fuck I'm doing. Like, they don't know if I'm insulting them or just an idiot or what. I don't know. And I get, like, there's a small slice of people who seem to accept that this kind of interaction is just okay across the board, that it's right, I don't know. A couple of friends I met when I went to college for the first time were kind of the first people I ran into who just sort of kind of fit into that perfectly. Not the same exact traits, whatever, but equally this sort of childish and requiring a certain level of, I don't know, intelligence to twist things enough to be amusing. I don't know. But it's rare to find people, I think, who play at the same level. But I don't need that. I can teach people to play if they have any tendency in that direction. But there are a fair number of people who just don't accept that at all. Anyway, the pain's more intense now, but that's a good thing. The pain's going to make everything all right.